right, guys, it's Monday. I'm in a little bit of a time crush, but I needed to get this video out. You know, it's Monday. I've done it all year. Let's continue that trend. We're here today to solve a few mysteries. So the first one is, why is this guy on the right looking so happy? Well, he got to cast Eternal Weekend, both the vintage portion and the legacy portion. I can't say how grateful I am to Cart Titan for believing in my ability to do commentary and transmit the games all the way back into your basements, living rooms, or wherever you were watching. Also, I got to cast with my longtime friend Corey Baumeister. He brought awesome energy, and it was a pleasure to guide him a little bit on his vintage journey. Next up, we have another happy guy on the right here. So this guy's happy because he got to work again with Tannen Grace. Tannen is an awesome professional. Tannen and I had a lot of fun both during and between the rounds. And yeah, I hope to work with him again in the future. Last mystery to solve here is, why is this guy so happy? Mr. Tom Basketball. I saw a Twitch chat saying he was the son of the Sir Thomas Baseball. Why is he so happy? Well, it turns out winning Eternal Weekend North America legacy portion will put a smile like that on your face. So let's see how that all broke down. Here's the top 32 of the event. Let's start with the top 8 over here. So these are the heavy hitters. So just look at this conversion rate from Mystic Forge, 3 copies in the top 8. I would argue nobody would have predicted that. Mystic Forge, just like last year, had a dominating performance here at Eternal Weekend NA. And remember, we have Japan and Europe coming up. So is this a sign of things to come? Who knows? Mystic Forge, fast combo deck that can ignore a lot of stuff. If the metagame is not ready with tons of consigns, tons of wasteland, tons of null rod, bunch of forces, this deck is really, really scary. Also, all of the decks that are faster than Mystic Forge usually are behind against Reanimator, Blue-Black Tempo, Iset Tempo, stuff like that. So Mystic Forge has this awesome spot in the metagame where you get to main deck Graveyard against Reanimator. You're faster than a lot of the other decks. You can ignore what a lot of other decks are doing. And yeah, it sure made everybody pay on the weekend. Triple Forge in the top 8, including the winner, Tom Basketball, taking it all down. So we also have 3 copies of Reanimator decks in this top 8, and that is less of a surprise. So going in, I would probably have predicted 2 copies in the top 8, but 3 is certainly in the realm of what betting men would have predicted. So Reanimator converting incredibly well to round out this top 8 as the other big dog. Just a quick note about whatever makes top 8 and what makes top 16. So sometimes it's down to tiebreaker, sometimes it's down to a single match going one way or the other down the stretch. So it's just to say that we are just a couple of matches away from this top 8 being 8 different decks, or this top 8 being, I guess, 6 Reanimator decks. So that can kind of go in both directions. It's very, very slim margins, whether you get over the hump or you end, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, whatever. Johan Larsson, to the surprise of no one, converted into another top 8 using his beloved breakfast deck. I must say, this deck is incredible, but if your name is Johan Larsson, it's beyond that. So I highly recommend going and check out his scribblings over on my Metafy. He has a, 20 pages long primer uploaded over there, and that will give you a lot of good stuff to either start, continue your breakfast journey, or simply just being ready to beat it at your next event. So I highly, highly recommend that one. By the way, shout out to my countryman, HJ Godic, for, I believe, his 5th top 8. I tuned in after my shift on one of the days, and I saw him miss an Atraxa trigger. And at that point, I was like, okay, maybe the busy work life and the family life has taken a toll on the guy, but he sure came back stronger, and I believe he made it all the way to the finals. I must admit that I wasn't awake when the final was played, so yeah, I guess you guys are better informed than me in that regard. The biggest story of this top 8, however, is this sweet green-black Pox deck. We saw it in action a few times on camera, and it just looked super cool. Smallpox, the hatchery, loam lock, just a bunch of cool stuff going on there, and I would say that this deck should give hope to a lot of players out there looking to get the job done their way. Graveyard pile here is, as usual, mainly going to be Reanimator, and then we have a little bit of sprinkle of fast Reanimator and Oops All spells. In this case, a classic version, I believe, with Faithless Looting was pretty cool to see. I believe that player made 9th place. They brought a beautifully foiled deck. We were certainly fanboying a little bit in the booth over that one. That's also an underrated part of Eternal Weekend when you're spectating and you see, you know, players bringing their beautiful decks that they spend years and years to curate. So thank you so much for that experience. The tempo pile here has a couple of actual Delvers. Delver Secrets was played in the hands of double champion Roland Chang. Roland Chang with another beautiful deck, Japanese foil. Yeah, that was incredible to see. It looked like Roland ran a little bit out of steam in the end. And yeah, once again, this tournament also proved that Magic is a terribly complicated game. And when you play it for 8 hours straight, 10 hours straight, tons of pressure, tons of noise in the hall, you know, lots of people watching. It's only natural that you're not going to be playing your best game. So I was happy to see Roland finish very, very strong with just finishing just outside of the top 8. Another Delver deck made it deep in the tournament, got a promo. Also, should have remembered this. I should have mentioned this from the get-go. All of these players, top 32, got a Tendrils of Agony promo for their trouble. And then the top 8 got an additional foil copy of the Tendrils. Exclusive promos every year, always exciting to see what they come up with. And then we had an Esper version here, played by Claire. Claire played Clarion Conqueror as a 4-of, so there's a little bit of a cool storyline there. Even Quad Baragoyf, if I remember correctly. This version was very, very ready to play against Mystic Forge and Nadu with the Conquerors. And very, very ready to play against Mono Red Prison, Iset Tempo, Eldrazi, stuff like that with the Quad Baragoyf. So heavily metagamed version of the Esper tempo. Slightly bigger than normal tempo, though. Combo pile here consists of a couple of Sneak and Shows, one more Mystic Forge. I guess we should place these, get a slightly better overview of what's going on. Yeah, where to place the Pox deck. Couple of Sneak and Shows was cool to see. Stock up, Sneak Attack, Show and Tell, decent threat density in the deck, kind of like the Oath deck in Vintage. Very, very similar with Show and Tells and then Sneak Attack instead of Oath, and then trying to treat attracts into play. Single copy of Doomsday, a fan favorite deck that is a little bit underpowered these days. You really need to believe in order to convert with Doomsday, and this player certainly did. Stompy pile is surprisingly small here, so only 2 copies of Mono Red Prison, 0 copies of Eldrazi here. That was very surprising. That deck has been crushing online. There is something to be said about online and paper not being the same. Slower decks in general favored in paper by players and online. There can be multiple reasons that you want a fast deck. So yeah, certainly an underperformance here by the Chalice decks. The opposite of underperformance is going to be overperformance, and that's where this creature pile comes in. So we can maybe start off with the versions of Nadu. So we have the Cradle version of Nadu. That's kind of an extension of the Cradle Control deck. It can win fast. It can go wide. And most of these decks basically have in common... Oh, by the way, this is Sultai Control. I should probably put that with the Pox deck, or Sultai Midrange, I guess you should call it. These decks have that in common, that sweepers don't see that much play, so all of a sudden you can play Death and Taxes go wide, you can play Energy. That deck didn't convert this time around, but you can play a bunch of creatures out of the Nadu version here, you can play a bunch of creatures in the Cradle Control deck, and as long as sweepers don't see play, I think those decks will keep doing well. When it comes to more of a creature combo-centric, we had a single copy of Red Painter, a deck blast from the past, but also just a deck that I would say on the level of Doomsday, not necessarily the best deck on paper anymore, but the dedicated pilots can still get the job done. A single copy of Bant Nadu Midrange. That deck is a deck with no crushingly good matchups, no crushingly bad matchups. You just get to play the game and assume your role depending on the matchup. You're a little bit of a slower version of Breakfast, but you are a mid-range deck with a combo finish. So there's a lot of stuff to explore in that space. And that deck is, it seems to always do well in paper events. And then a copy of Breakfast, aside from Larson. Breakfast can either be Blazing Fast or play this mid-range game. And I think until people start really studying the deck and understanding, should I bring in Surgical? Should I bring in Fairy? Is Nile Spellbomb good enough? Until people nail that, Breakfast is going to keep racking up top 8s. I think there's a lot to explore there when it comes to exploiting the deck. Also, the stock of Orcish Bowmaster is very important for Breakfast success. So Breakfast for now, taking advantage of the metagame, but I feel like we can do slightly better to prevent Larson from keep racking up these top 8s. When it comes to big mana, only a single copy of Cloudpost. It was the blue version, I believe. No lands deck in sight. No Eldrazi deck in sight. No Oops All Spells deck. That's kind of the storylines for me. Of course, if I go to top 50, I would see a ton of those decks. Who knows? But when it comes to converting into a promo, there was just a lone Cloudpost deck. So when you look across here, how come there's only a lonely one here? You know, Blood Moon, Wasteland, faster combo decks, generally the way to beat the deck. And then lastly here in the control pile, we already talked about the Smallpox deck, but I believe a seasoned Sultai player here. We talked a little bit about that on air. The fact that this player has registered Sultai for, I don't know, 3 or 4 Legacy champs in a row, and he doesn't seem to disappoint in that regard. We saw some sweet plays like Hogak. That's probably my favorite play. Orcish Bowmasters enabling Hogak, kind of making a little bit of an 8/8 Murktide Regent-esque creature with evasion, 8/8 Trampler. That was crazy to see. And it just looked like this player was enjoying life with his favorite cards. And at the end of the day, what more do you want? I think that's going to do it for today's episode. I covered the top 32. I covered the top 8. Talked a little bit about the trends and the categories. And that's what we do here on Metagame Monday. I will take a few days off, and then I'll be back on the grind with coaching, writing articles, building my community, and all of that stuff. So if that's something you want to take part of, make sure to join me over on Metafy, and I'll send you a Discord invite immediately. All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your week, and Eternal Magic for life.